Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back. Welcome back to another PorscheCooled Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things Porsche. We also talk about other things as well, but predominantly Porsche. We also talk about things that Steve and I have been getting up to and things we're bored and things we're doing, but we're all Porsche-centric here. We're all talking about the Porsche world. So I'm going to be joined with Steve shortly. Steve joins me via Zoom from Australia. I'm currently residing in or holidaying in or staying in London, but I live in Bahrain at the moment. I'm from Sydney, and if you haven't listened to this podcast before, my name is Michael Barth, and I'm going to be joined by Steve shortly. As I said, I'm in London. I own a 997. That's what I own. Yes, I own a 997 Carrera 2006 model. But I'm dreaming of a lot more things. And if you go back through the old podcast, you'll hear everything that I've been talking about in the last few months and everything that's on my mind and everything that I'm aiming to buy. So like I said, this is a PorscheCooled Podcast. We're available everywhere. Apple is the main one, Spotify and Google. This podcast, I just want to do a little bit of update before I get Steve on the line. This podcast now, we're going to do it routinely. It's going to be every Friday. This is the episode with Steve and I's every Friday. What we might try and do is, I thought we might try and have a bonus or an extra episode, which will become live on Tuesdays. And I'm talking US UK time here. So Tuesdays US UK time and Fridays US UK time as well. It normally goes up about 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in London, which is GMT plus 1. I think that's about 5 a.m. in some places in the US. I'm not sure about other time zones. But anyway, so we'll have our routine one, our normal one, where we chat about all things Porsche. And then we'll have an extra one, which will still chat about all things Porsche, but maybe that extra bonus episode, we might bring in some other people to chat with, other Porsche owners, etc. Just to give you an extra episode every now and again. But normally it's one episode per week, which is the one you're listening to now, which is every Friday. To start that off, I did an extra episode a couple of days ago, which went live yesterday, Tuesday, and which was just me solo. Steve wasn't a part of that one. I was just testing the day and testing to see if you guys like to hear our podcast on a Tuesday. It seems like from the downloads of the podcast, you actually do, which is fantastic. So we'll continue with that, and we'll continue with, like I said, we'll continue with our Friday as our routine, and then we'll add an extra one every now and again, which will be on a Tuesday. Anyway, so now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up the Zoom, and I'm going to get Steve on the video chat on the call from Sydney, and we'll start this podcast. So this is the PorscheCooled Podcast. Steve will be on in a second. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Steve is now with us. We had a few technical difficulties, but Steve is now with us all the way from Sydney, Australia. Third time lucky. Hi, Steve.
Howdy. Who's out there complaining about my audio?
No.
If only you knew.
I think the audio, actually, Steve and I had a bit of a dilemma from the last podcast, not the one I just did by myself, solo, but the one before that. We had a bit of a dilemma thinking there was a lot of hiss in it, but it seemed to be hiss in some platforms, but not in others, so I don't know. There must be some type of processing going on. But when I listened to it, I re-listened to it in Apple, Steve, and Spotify, and I put it through my headphones. It was actually fine. It was weird.
Don't forget to give yourself a good rating.
And Natasha did it too. We got some more ratings during the week too. Thank you everyone for the ratings. We've got another 2 reviews. We got a review from Juzi in Australia. We got a review from
that's pretty cool.
Someone else. So we got a couple of reviews, which is great. So this is the normal episode of the PorscheCooled Podcast. As I said in the intro, we might try to do an extra episode, Steve and I, on Tuesdays. That will go live on Tuesdays, but it won't be every week, and it might be just every now and again, and it might be a slightly different format. We'll work on that, but it's just an idea which I haven't actually explained to Steve yet. So he's sitting there going, "What are you talking about?" But it's just an idea of maybe bringing in other Porsche owners and talking to them about their cars, but not a regular weekly thing. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was a good idea. I'll tell you about it later, mate.
Yeah, cool.
All right, so here I am, still Porscheless. My last drive in a 911 was with Nick a couple of weeks ago. Did you go for a drive, Steve?
I did. I finally got off my ass and I woke up early on Sunday morning. Baby was good, so I went down south into the national park and went for a pretty good drive actually. I was a little bit nervous because the weather in Sydney last weekend was crazy. It was snowing in the Blue Mountains and various places down southeast. So
Wow.
I kind of thought maybe it might not be the best conditions to be going out on Cup 2s, like at 6 o'clock in the morning when it was probably less than 10 degrees ambient. But
Because it gets icy down there, right? Down south.
I wasn't sure. Like, how a lot of the roads there are kind of covered like with a lot of trees and there's water that sort of trickles down, through the kind of bushland and everything. So I was kind of pondering whether or not it would be a disaster. So
Yeah.
not that I kind of fang on public roads, but I was a little bit more careful.
Yeah, but yeah, go on, sorry.
No, it's a good drive. Like, I had a guy in a white Mark III Golf. It looked non-standard, chasing me on the way back. He was probably wondering what the granddad in front of him was doing in a GT3.
He probably couldn't hear himself with that new exhaust of yours. He's probably he's probably going, man, what's this so loud? Something wrong
Possibly.
with your car? Sounds like a cup
if the
car.
guy's out there.
Doesn't it?
But yeah, it's good. It's really good. I'm really happy with it. Like, it's definitely louder, but I don't think it's droning. So I think all the sounds that kind of come out of it are kind of really good. But
Did you record it?
I couldn't be asked, mate. If you really want me to, I can.
No, I'm just wondering if you recorded it so you could actually hear it back,
It's quite hard to record. I mean, I'd need to get tips from you. I'm not.
You need to stick a
I don't really
GoPro
do
on
that
your back
sort of thing.
bumper so you can actually, do that exhaust image that everyone loves doing on YouTube.
Yeah,
It gets boring after about 2 minutes.
Oh, I quite enjoy a good exhaust vid. Like I'll watch one on YouTube. So, but
I don't know. A lot of people seem
anyway.
to be getting free exhausts on YouTube. I don't know. It seems like people are getting like free exhausts. So some people are
Well,
lucky.
is it all the sponsors?
Yeah, I think so. I think
to do a
Soul
bit of
Performance
spruiking.
does that. Soul Performance actually reached out to me. They never reached out to me again, by the way. Soul Performance exhaust system. I don't know if I've told you this. When they
I think
first
you'd mean.
came out, they actually sent me an email, the guy, and offered an exhaust to me, and I said no. I said I'm okay with my Vista, and they never spoke to me again after that. So
It's John Gatos. He used to be at Fab Speed. He's a really nice bloke. I've asked him questions and stuff
really?
before. Like, yeah. I think he's really good in the Porsche community. And if you get on Renlist and you read his stuff, he's not pushy. Like, there's a bit of a gag on there when you post about exhaust, and Fab Speed always chime in. But he went off to Soul. Like, they sound really like good people. Like, the service is good. There's lifetime warranty on certain bits for GT3s and stuff like that.
they seem to be getting good reviews, and I think that's great. And they seem to be people seem to like it. I just hope that those reviews are not because they're giving people free exhaust to review, and people just think that they have to review it positively. I always worry about these things now with these products because, someone gave me that watch roll a few weeks ago, and I did a review on it. And I said to the guy, I said, look, there's a couple of things I don't like about it, so I'm going to say it. And he said, that's okay. You know what I mean? I'm not going to actually give them a positive review just because you've given me something to for free,
It's funny you say that because your listeners won't know my kind of occupational background, but being from an advertising kind of background, not on the sales side, but on the creative side, like the whole sort of social media type thing is basically just like a massive advertising channel. So I say to my wife all the time, like, don't believe everything that you kind of sort of hear and see and read in social media, because a lot of that, in the old days, that sort of thing would be there's a little bit more of an honor system where you're open to, you sort of say like when people kind of give you stuff, but it's a bit of a Wild West thing now. So
yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky.
I know what you're saying, but just to be clear too, I think from the bits that I've read on Renlist, like normal people that aren't on social media, etc., like just normal customers have been really happy with their stuff. So
yes. I did read a thread somewhere about it, and it seemed like their product is actually good. I was going to get to that. I'm not actually bagging them, but I did read that. Yeah. But you have to be careful though, because there's a lot of people testing things, And I remember what Chris Harris said on that podcast, and I mentioned it I think a while ago when we were talking. That he just finds all these people that go to these car launches, these social media people. They're just all they say is positive things. You know what I mean? It's like all becoming this. Did you hear that episode? He said it's just becoming what's real. You know what I mean?
It's an age-old conversation about, because that's sort of like purist journalism versus sort of social media types that influencers, and like I said, having an advertising background, I know exactly what he's kind of saying. So
it almost though, Steve, it almost makes you want. In a way, I find all this saturation from all these influence and all these supercars and people buying these new cars every now and again. It's so saturated now that you really don't want to buy new cars. You want to start looking at classics, and you want to see people doing channels with older cars. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost got to the point where, I mean, it's good to watch reviews of new cars from, what is it? The guy, the English guy, the good guy.
Harry,
yeah.
Harry Metcalf, he's awesome.
Harry Metcalf and Carfection guy, right?
Oh, Henry Catchpole?
Henry Catchpole, yeah, that's it. Henry Catchpole. Like, it's good to watch reviews of cars when they do it. I enjoy their reviews. But all the other fluff going around, it's like you don't want to see it. You want to sort of, I don't know, makes you want to go back into classics.
It's because they're trained journalists. Like, they're old school trained journalists. They know how to drive a car. They know how to review a car. And, like, it's funny because, like, we are actually now talking on social media to a degree. And it's sort of why I was so hesitant.
We never tell anyone that we're a trained journalist.
Yeah. But it's just weird because I always catch myself, like, how many times in the last, whatever it is, 6 podcasts have I sort of said to you, hey, I'm no expert, I'm no race car driver, blah, blah, blah. It's because, like, we don't get to kind of experience, like, press cars, blah, 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 blah. So I am very hesitant to kind of make out like I am an expert. Like, for sure, I've got an opinion.
Not yet, you don't have press cars.
Yeah. Don't hold your breath, mate.
No, but like Natasha listens to the podcast, so don't be embarrassed. She actually told me she listens to it. I didn't think she did, and my wife listens to the podcast, and she actually said it's really weird. She said, I'm listening to the podcast, and I feel like I'm just in a cafe in Sydney, and you and Steve are talking, and I'm just sitting there having my breakfast and coffee. She said it just sounds like one of your normal, it just sounds like one of your normal conversations where you just sit there for hours and just talk about Porsche. So
yeah.
I take that as a compliment. I think that's that's kind of what it is, and that's
the point of it.
Just us chatting over coffee or us chatting over whatever we're doing.
That's like I said. I'm pretty sure Cindy hasn't listened to it yet, but I keep saying to her, like, after we do one, it's like, oh man, I'm so self-conscious of making out like I know stuff that I don't actually know. Like, I can talk about my own personal experience with, the 3 sort of various Porsches that I have owned, and it's just weird talking about stuff that you kind of read, but you actually haven't experienced for yourself, like I find. But, that's just me.
I think it's okay. It's just, it's what mates do. It's what people do. And all the people listening to it are our Porsche mates, so that's how it works, So we're just one big group chatting.
Yeah, cool.
Basically.
I'll stop thinking about it.
So I want to go back not to the insecurities. I want to go back to Steve's drive, because that drive, and I just want to explain it, is in the Royal National Park outside of Sydney. It's south of Sydney. It's a really good drive, and you go down the mountain, basically, don't you? You go down the mountain. There's a couple of really hairy U-turns in it. There's a couple of parts where the road is really low, where you bottom out, and Steve and I always bottom out. And it's also at the end of it, you go a bit further on, and you get to Seacliff Bridge. And Seacliff Bridge is that famous bridge that's sort of suspended across the rocks, across the ocean, which is in a game. I think it's Forza 3. I think it's in that game. So it's actually a really, really good drive. It's one of my, I think it's a really good drive because it's a close drive, but you get enough to stretch your legs, don't you, Steve? It's not like the old Pacific Highway, which is I always find it's good, but then it's a bit short.
It's a bit short, and the old Pacific Highway used to be where you'd kind of go like 20 years ago, and then basically police, would always be there. It's pretty much impossible to kind of go there and not sort of come across the police at some point. It's probably exactly the same going down south as well, but it feels like a bit of a longer drive as well.
It's a better drive.
I prefer it, yeah. It's quite pretty when you get to that Seacliff Bridge too.
But the putty drive we went on, which I want to go do again, the putty drive was good because it was you didn't really see any cops. We saw very few cops that day.
Yeah, true.
So I went. Not that you were speeding, but you don't see many police.
When I went on Sunday, it was literally, I think, the sun had just kind of come up, so it was about a bit past 6. But it was really quiet. Really, really quiet. Maybe everybody else was kind of worried about that weather thing that I was talking about.
It's a nice time to go, though.
apart from white Mark III Golf guy
Yeah,
chasing me.
he'll never catch you. You should just say, mate, you're never going to catch me.
I was holding him up.
Oh, you're holding him
enough
up?
not to flash. Yeah.
Oh,
of course.
really? Oh, I thought
Yeah, I
you
think
mean
so.
you couldn't. Oh, you're holding him up. What happened? You're going up the hill, though. You always go faster up the hill than down the hill.
No, don't think so.
No? You go pretty fast, though. It's hard to keep up with you. Okay, so where are we? PorscheCooled Podcast. What are we talking about? Period Correct. I bought some gear from Period Correct. I've got my Mund hat on today. And I just bumped my microphone, so you're going to hear that. But I got my Mund hat on. I bought some gear from them. They're really good people to deal with. If you want to buy some really cool T-shirts, look at Period Correct. This is not sponsored. It's just that the guy was very helpful and helped me out. So I just want to do a little plug there for them.
That's cool.
So that's about it. I haven't been for any drives. I'm still doing my endless searches for 911s on Bring a Trailer and P-Car Market and car sales in Australia and Auto Trader. Nick, who I went for a drive with a couple of weeks ago, he says I should buy a 911 in UK. Apparently, I didn't think I could because I didn't think I could register it as a non-resident here because I'm not a resident in the UK. He says that apparently, yeah, he says you can. I thought it was something to do with insurance, but he reckons you can do it, so it is possible. But then you got to find parking. I don't have parking in this building, and for some reason, this building will not allow you to lease out a car space, even though there's like the whole car park downstairs. Steve, I'm not kidding. It's like empty. There's hardly. It's
To
like
other residents.
yeah. It's like it's probably like a 10th capacity down there. I'm not
Surely
kidding.
you can do a side deal.
Apparently not. Apparently they won't let you do it. I don't know. It's like people keep asking and they keep saying no. So,
Now that you
but anyway,
broadcast
that
to the
was
world, but yeah.
that was something that came up. But I don't know if I'll do that. All right. What else? Oh, last night I was just talking to Steve about this before, and I'm going to mention Nick again because he listens to this podcast. But I know he fitted a very cool fire extinguisher in his car, in his Carrera 4S. He had this metal fixing. I forget, Nick, where you said you got the fitting from, and I forget the name of the fire extinguisher. But his was really cool. It just sort of clips in, Steve. It's like a metal. It's a bit like the Renline fitting, a Renline bracket, I guess. It may be a Renline bracket. I should remember. I can't remember.
It attaches to the seat rails?
Yeah, it's underneath the seat rails, and it's like metal, and it's like really well made aluminium. It's a beautiful piece of equipment. It's really well made.
Yep.
So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, do I need a fire extinguisher? I mean, I like how they look. They look cool. And then Carrera. I think it's Carrera White on Instagram. I just sent you the link before, Steve. I think it's in German, the last bit. I think he's in Stuttgart. He was really helpful last night because I saw a picture that he posted on his Instagram, and it had a picture of his new leather pieces. I think we might have been talking about leather pieces in an old message with him. I was with him. And he gave me the part numbers because I was reading that the Porsche, because there's the Porsche mount and the strap and the brackets. It's like plastic, I think. It just goes under the seat. And apparently you just screw it in underneath the seat. You know, the holes match up because it's actually OEM. It's what came available on the 997. It was actually the factory part you could actually order from the factory when you bought the car new. He said the fire extinguisher is not available from Porsche anymore, but he got a Gloria fire extinguisher, which I think Gloria, I hope that's how you pronounce it. Gloria fire extinguishers are what Porsche used to use. So that's that. And then I was thinking that'd be a good idea to do. I checked Design 911 in the UK, and Design 911 actually have the parts. And I'll have to check with Nick how much he paid for his bracket and what his bracket was. So maybe I'll update in the next episode. And it was about 300. I think it was about £300 just for the bracket and parts from Porsche.
They're
like
expensive.
The 6 parts that you had to buy. Then you got to buy the fire extinguisher. The fire extinguisher is about 50 quid. It doesn't look like Australia. I did a quick search seeing do they have Gloria fire extinguishers in Australia, and it seems like they don't. But maybe they just don't come up on Google. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you, and I don't remember where yours was. Some people are saying it goes under the driver's seat, and I know Nick has his fitted under the driver's seat, and other people say that it goes under the passenger seat. I think Carrera White, I just sent you. Did he have
Under
it
the drivers.
It's under the
Under the
driver?
drivers. I'm looking at the photo. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So his is under the driver. Yeah, it is too. So most people were saying, no, it's definitely under the driver's seat. And I noticed on Design 911 here in UK, where I bought the parts from before, where I'm going to buy the stainless steel sills from as well, they say the mount is for right-hand drive vehicles. So I don't know how the mount varies between right-hand drive and left-hand drive. But I guess if I wanted to buy it, I'd have to ask them. But I'll search what Nick has got and just see. But this is actually you know me, I'm a bit of a fan of OEM Porsche stuff, even though it might be plastic and cheap looking. So that's what I was thinking about. Then I thought, oh, your GT3 had a fire extinguisher, but you no longer have it in the car. And was there a reason for that?
Because I know what you're sort of saying when you say that it looks cool, but the fire extinguisher that came standard with my Club Sport is massive. It's not like one of the little ones. You know that they also have an expiry date on them. I think they're like harnesses. I'm not quite sure how long they last, but I think it's only a couple of years. And then pure coincidence that you just sort of mentioned fire extinguishers, because I think I was reading a Renlist post a couple of weeks back where some of the track rats were talking about fire extinguishers, and a few people had mentioned that some of the smaller ones, not Bag and Nix or Carrera Whites.
I think it's a 1 kilo. The one that I asked him, sorry, Steve, I asked Carrera White guy, I asked him what he used, and it was definitely, it's 1 kilo. I think that must be the size that actually fits in the Porsche bracket. That's actually that size.
Yeah, so again, I'm not talking from my own experience, just what I read on this this interesting post was that a lot of the guys actually sort of said apparently that that size of extinguisher is sort of semi-pointless, because if you have a serious fire, they don't actually last long enough to kind of extinguish. And to your point about which side would it be mounted on, I think you'd clearly want to, so mine would be on the passenger side, but it's because it wouldn't fit. There's no way it would fit in the footwell.
Yes.
And there's literally holes in the floor. But you also...
But it has to be on the driver's side, because you're supposed to be able to get it quickly.
Access it, because if you've got a fire
and if it's on the
car,
passenger side, you have to get out of the car, go around and pick it up.
You got to unclip it and all of that sort of stuff. Look, if you're obviously on the track, then you're also kind of harnessed in, so you've got to unclip yourself and all that type of stuff. Even for everyday driving, though. So it's funny because in this forum that I was reading, there's sort of like a new age extinguisher. So it's more like the size of like a flare. You know, like if you're stuck in a desert island and you need to kind of get somebody's attention. It's literally sort of more like a tube that's nowhere near as big and thick and all of that sort of stuff. So it was newer technology, and I looked it up to see if they were available in Australia, and they are. Like you can get it at the four-wheel driving supply stores, because they use it for that type of thing.
I think I saw it on the Gloria, on this site that I was looking at, Gloria Fire Extinguishers. It came up with, it was something, it's called Flare something, right? They actually use the name Flare? Mm-hmm.
No, I saw the American version, then I noticed that because you can't ship from America, there's sort of like there's an Aussie sort of version of it, or you can buy it from an Aussie store, but much smaller, lasts a lot longer. Like I watched a video and I think it sort of went for over a minute. Effective on electrical fires, blah 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 blah. So it seems like that potentially, if you were going to go down the fire extinguisher route, that maybe that might be the sort of more new age technological version. And for sure, it doesn't look as cool because it's not kind of clipped into a bracket and stuff like that. But
yeah, the Carrera White, the fire extinguisher he said is the Gloria. I couldn't find this number actually. I think they might have. I don't know if they've changed it, but it was a P1DB auto fire extinguisher, and it was 1 kilogram of ABC powder. So it's for oil, fuel. So it's powder fire extinguisher, yeah? And it's 1 kilogram, because that's obviously the size that Porsche fit in that thing. And I was thinking when you removed your fire extinguisher, I remember now, it's quite large, the one in your GT3, wasn't it? It's quite big.
It's massive, and it's if you lift up the floor mats on the passenger side of my car, there's like two or four kind of massive bolt holes for it, because it comes with a specific bracket. So the bracket has a strap, like it has really expensive.
Yeah, but it has a retaining strap. It's like a retaining strap. Yeah, that's like the one that goes in the 997, the one I was looking at on the Porsche parts. The thing is with the one for the 997, which is in the Porsche parts manual, they've changed the parts number. So if you do the search for those parts number, it doesn't always come up. That's why I couldn't find it. And then a guy on Instagram gave me the newer part numbers, so then I could actually find it. So. But anyway, that's just an idea. That's just an idea. I don't know why. I wasn't thinking about it, and now I'm started to think about it. This is what happens. People see these things in your head. And it's all about safety, isn't it? You need it, right? Not the Porsches are like Lamborghinis. They're not like Italian cars. They don't just burst up in flames. Or English cars, like the McLaren, I should say. McLaren, Italian and English cars.
Well, don't speak too soon. Touch lots of wood. But
if you had an air-cooled...
Exactly. I was about to say, like, with the older cars, maybe you would potentially sort of be a little bit more cautious, but I'm not sure on a 997. I have no idea. But you'd want to think that not many of those kind of have go up in smoke. So,
does anyone ever fit the fire extinguisher in a GT3 on the roll cage, like in the back area? Have you ever seen that? Like, do people actually relocate them?
I don't know, but the type of extinguisher that I was just kind of mumbling about, I think that's the sort of thing where you could, because it's sort of a lot smaller and lighter and all that type of thing.
Right. Yeah, interesting.
I noticed, like, when I was looking weirdly, because I don't ever use it, but for like camera gear, like to attach GoPros and all that type of stuff, there's lots of kind of places that make gear that attach to roll cages.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that if you wanted to kind of find a specific type of bracket to kind of mount something like that, you could.
Yeah, you'll stick the fire extinguisher on the roll cage, and you'll have no view through the back. You'll just see this big, this big red fire extinguisher in your view.
Yeah, I think get one of the smaller ones.
All right. The other thing I noticed, and I think you told me about it first, and then I looked at it, is the new, and I noticed it's on Instagram now. It's being posted all around the place. The Porsche 911 Reimagined Special Edition. I guess we should talk about what the episode today. Steve and I are just chatting Porsche things. There's a few things in Porsche news that's come up and new models. So I guess it's about new models and stuff like that we're going to talk about. But the first thing was this new model, this special edition they're calling it, which is basically just an edition to celebrate the first Porsche launched in Australia, right? The first one that was sold in 1965. I think that was the story. Yeah.
Yep.
But it's basically a exclusive manufacturer 992 911 Carrera S to honor the first edition of the first 911 sold in Australia, which is still in existence in Australia. I think it's in some museum, but they're loaning it out to Porsche Melbourne or Porsche Sydney to display next to their new limited edition or exclusive manufacturer model.
Didn't they say they spec'd it?
Yeah,
like
they
when
did.
You watch all the horrible kind of press release stuff. Sorry, like my cynicism is going to creep in very quickly.
Yeah, no, I'm going to as well because I have a few problems with it. With it. And I think the listeners should do a search for it. It's called Porsche 911 Reimagined Special Edition for Australia. That's a long search.
So what it is in the two dealerships that they're talking about, the Melbourne one and South Sydney, they're owned by Porsche, which is probably why they've kind of got access to it. It's just a bit of a marketing exercise, really.
Yeah.
And so I can say that because I'm in marketing. So
exactly.
Well,
and
sort of.
I don't know what the problems you have with it, but I'll tell you the problems I have with it, Steve.
Yeah.
Is that if you go to the effort to do this and promote it, right? I'm going to be a bit critical of Porsche Australia here. And it's a homage to that 1965 one. And the 1965 one was in stone grey, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how you pronounce it in German, but it's in stone grey. Yep. So they created a 992, version of this stone grey. Now, like, if you're creating a 992 version of it, and this car is... So obviously the way they spec it, it's Porsche exclusive manufacturer. So obviously they just get the car from Porsche and they add the exclusive manufacturer parts onto it in Australia. I think that's what they do. But I still don't understand. If you're going to do something like this, why don't you make it a PTS color? Why don't you make it in the actual stone grey to actually match it? Like, why don't you go the full way? And I know that's probably a hassle because then they have to wait for them to come in. And this way they can just... See, the color they've spec'd it in, as you know, is in crayon or chalk, depending on what country you're in. Yeah. So it's crayon in Australia, but I think it's chalk in the US. So that's what... And that is a special color. It's classed as a custom color and it costs, $5,000 more in Australia or whatever it is it costs.
Crayon is?
Yeah, crayon's a more expensive color. It's not the base color. But I don't understand. Why wouldn't you do it in PTS?
So I completely agree. Like crayon is sort of like you can get a McCann in crayon, like the current the updated McCann in crayon. Crayon's like quite popular now, and I don't mind it as a color, but it's like that's really weird that the original 1965 car was stone grey. We know that you can kind of do stone grey because, like, isn't Zuckerman's Speedster in stone grey.
Yes.
Like it is paint to sample.
That's what it's a paint to sample
So-
color.
It's not that. It wouldn't have been that much harder for Porsche factory to kind of go and paint the thing in the actual same color as opposed to something that's kind of close.
Yeah, but I think
It's weird.
I think this is what they
So
do. though.
lazy.
It is a bit lazy, but see, they just order a crayon Carrera S. They basically order it. No, they have. It has to be. It's not just done in because exclusive manufacturer parts.
it's out
when
of
you
the
watch,
factory.
yeah, when you watch the videos online, but exclusive manufacturer parts can be fitted by a dealer. They can be fitted by Porsche dealers, but there must be some things, not everything. And then other things are done in the factory after the car's produced. They go to exclusive manufacturer, and then have you seen those videos where the guy does the car and then he takes off the pieces that he has to change and replace them? Obviously, with the sills, they probably do that in the factory. But I agree. This is the problem. Like we seem to both be agreeing here is that it should be in stone grey. If you're going to do a replica of this car, then it has to be in the right color. Now, the other problem I have with it too is, one, it's in PDK. And I know the manual Carrera S, I don't think is even launched in Australia yet. I think it's launched in America, right? Is it launched in Australia?
I don't know. Not sure.
And I don't understand why you wouldn't do it in manual. Like, you're trying to do a car that collectors are going to want, that someone's going to be interested in, but you're targeting the different market. You know what I mean? Like, you're not targeting these people who would be interested in this car. So why didn't you do it in manual? And then those damn door sills they put on there, I don't understand. And Steve, you will understand this, being, knowing how graphics work and knowing how, things should be laid out. But I look at those door sills. Why is there so much text on the door sill? It's like someone ordering, like I can order a custom door sill and I can, write a sentence on there and have them as a door sill on my new GT3. I can order a custom door sill. It's like, why don't they just have, I forget what it says. What does it say? It says, what does it say on the door sills?
Sorry, I didn't actually pay that much attention to the door sills. 1965 Reimagined? Is that what?
Yeah, it says 1965 Reimagined, and to me, that's the door sill, right? That's it. Yeah. But it's got 1965 Reimagined Porsche something manufacturer, exclusive manufacturer partner or something. Like, so it's got all this text. To me, it looks wrong. I don't know. I just find that door sills are better when they're simple and they're one line. When they've got two lines, they always look too jammed in.
Just on the Reimagined thing too, isn't that a Singer thing?
Yes.
Like, obviously the legal kind of people kind of got to the point where they were happy for Singer to market using that particular word. So can Singer countersue for like Porsche using that phrase? I don't know. I'm semi-joking, but it's just, like as a marketing exercise, it's very clumsily done. Like, and like the bit that I'll sort of throw in, when you look at the little videos, the online videos and the photos and everything, I'm sort of in two minds as to what I sort of think about the 992, but geez, how big does the thing look compared to like the old?
I know, it looks like a
the
truck.
original 1965. It's massive. It looks
double
like
the size, right?
Bentley.
Yeah, it's double the size, right? It's enormous, absolutely enormous.
So again, with a bit of a advertising background, like if that was me that
20
was kind
years
of
in
given that
advertising,
job,
mate. Over 20 years in advertising is more than a bit. Don't undersell yourself.
If that was me in that job, like when you take those shots, the one thing that you would do is make sure that like you think about all the things that kind of sort of sensitive things with your kind of fan base, and one of them would have been like, well, how big is the 992 compared to the originals? Of course, they're always getting bigger. They said the same thing about a 997, but with the actual press shots that they took, they've made it look enormous. There's tricks that you can kind of do with photography and stuff like that to kind of not necessarily highlight it, but again, I'd just kind of go, oh man, you've done quite a crap job at sort of trying to make the thing special.
Yeah, I agree. They've got the rear shot, haven't they, or the front on shot, and it looks, the way they've done it is just, I mean, maybe they did it on an angle or something, I don't know, but the way they've done it looks crazy. And I even think that the shots they've done, and I'm going to be, I don't know if this is what you do if you're a car company or you want to advertise cars, but they do that overused shot at the roundabout near the Opera House, coming out of the Opera House, and then they use the other shot on Bronte along between Bondi Beach and Bronte in Sydney along that walkway. It's like those two places are like so like. I don't know. I mean, they just seem a little bit too common for me to take a photo of it. I mean, is that what you do? Does people recognize it, or do you choose something a little bit? I thought it should have been in more of an industrial setting or something a bit cooler, like a bit Luftcult looking, not so like, I don't know.
Or if you go for authenticity, that original car is in Adelaide and still is in Adelaide. It's on its third owner or something like that. It's like, well, stick to Adelaide. There'd be some beautiful locations there. But you're right, because I think, again, in marketing faux pas terms, like clearly the person that's going to buy that car lives in Australia. The last thing you're going to do is kind of take a shot of that next to the Opera House, because to a Sydney sider, that's a cliche, just as you're basically kind of pointing out.
Yes.
So
it's crazy.
It's just weird.
It's weird. Just, it's like, are you selling to an international market? Yeah. No. But it looks like you're selling to someone overseas, right? You're selling like Australia's surf and sand and harbour or something.
Yeah. So now that we've kind of aired all of that, there goes your press car that you were hoping for from Porsche Australia.
Like this. I just say that this wasn't... Yeah, true. But, I think that one thing they've done okay, I guess the interior doesn't look terrible. I mean, that green club leather that they've used, I forget the proper name for it, but
agave green.
Yeah, agave green club leather with the crayon stitching. I don't dislike. I don't think it's special. I don't dislike it. I still think that the tan colored one, which goes with the green that you used to have, the new green version of that. I think that's still
Aventura.
Yeah, Aventura. I think that and the tan is a better combination. I think the green looks okay with the crayon. I think it's not a bad combination. I don't know about having the same color in the seatbelts though, like matching the seatbelts to that leather is a bit much. I don't know. And then I think it's got wood trim as well. Yeah. But I think the person who tried to do this was just, I don't know, they missed it a little bit. I think they missed it a little bit.
It's funny because when you, again, don't believe everything, but the two people that fronted it, there was a salesperson from Porsche Melbourne and Porsche South Sydney. And they sort of made out like they kind of got together and they sort of spec'd the cars out and stuff like that. It's like, I wouldn't be shouting about it. Yeah.
Anyway, good on Porsche Australia for doing a special edition to celebrate the first 911 sold in Australia in 1965, but it's not going to be to everyone's taste. It's not how you would spec your 992 if you're buying one, that's for sure. And I think you could do a better job of speccing a 992 than what they have. But obviously they're trying to match it up to that 65 one, and I think that's the problem. They've actually maybe they should have got the color right instead of worrying about the interior so much. Mm-hmm. Don't you reckon?
Agreed. Yep.
But we love you, Porsche Australia. We don't hate you. We love you.
Do you?
The other thing I read the other day is the Taycan, and Panamera updating. The Taycan one I found. I don't know
exercises.
Yeah, I don't know whether you read about the Taycan. I found the Taycan one quite interesting, considering that for the 2021 model, they're it seems like they're moving forward quite quickly. And I guess maybe when they launched it, everything wasn't ready, and then they kind of. It seems like that it's moved forward a lot in 1 year. And I guess this goes back, Steve, to the thing Nick Murray always says as well. You never buy the first year of a new model, first generation, first year. But I thought the interesting thing was
contrary to Magnus Walker.
Contrary to Magnus Walker, who only collects, people that know Magnus Walker, he wants the first year of every Porsche. Basically, that's what his aim is to buy. And he does. He buys, But I think when it came... Sorry, I'm going to go off track a bit here. But his 928, I think he always says that the 78 928s are still the best. They're the more reliable out of the 928s. Because I know we've talked about 928s a little bit before. Not much. But I think he says 78 928s. But then he bought a 98 996, I don't know about getting the first year of a 996.
Yeah. I know which way I'd go. Yep.
Anyway, so you probably read the same article. So the Taycan is getting over-the-air updates and a subscription model, which I thought was quite interesting. So it's a bit a la Tesla.
It's all a la Tesla.
Yeah, and I think they're calling it functions on demand. I'm reading this now, actually. Functions on demand. So it allows owners to purchase and install new features over the air without visiting a dealership. So that's pretty cool. But the features are like power steering, lane keeping assist, Drive, which is that cruise control that knows by the
Smart
GPS
cruise
where
control.
you are. Yeah, and it remembers to lift up if you've got a lift, and etc. Yeah, I think that's what it does. It does all of the features in one. So I think that's quite a good idea that it can be done remotely. The thing about the subscription, though, I mean, are you going to end up paying more with these subscription services? And is this the way Porsches, are they testing the market with the Taycan, and then when the 911s come out?
There's an option to kind of pay for it, like a larger fee, just a one-off kind of thing. But it's a Tesla. It follows like the kind of benchmark set by Tesla. But again, like in pure marketing sort of terms, everything's gone subscription model, like Netflix, iTunes started it with music, etc., etc. So everybody's going to subscription. And they're talking. We didn't sort of chat about this prior to this conversation, but it sort of made me think about the fact that that car brands in general are kind of going for as opposed to owning a car. So as opposed to you kind of going and forking out $250,000 for your brand new 911. Subscription models with brands are sort of going to be the next thing, where you pay X number a month. I actually found it because it's only in North America.
Subscription models, I know even just with subscription models with general things that you have for cloud storage, if that was a one-off fee, aren't you paying? I don't know. You always feel like you're paying more with a subscription. I know you pay less because you're only going to pay monthly, but then in the long run, you're paying more. So it's actually a way for the car companies to get more money from you.
Yeah. They're gouging you basically. But yeah, sorry. My point was just going to be the interesting thing about ownership versus like just paying like a monthly fee to drive whatever Porsche that you wanted to do. That's going to be the way of the future, and because like there's all these sort of statistics about young people these days don't really, back in the old days, you would aspire to owning your home and your car as the two big purchases. But apparently, statistically, young people these days don't actually kind of aspire to owning cars at all. So car ownership is going to go to subscription, which is quite an interesting thing. You think about how enthusiastic and how much time and money and everything that we kind of spend on like the thing that we own and we kind of love to death, but there's this whole new kind of attitude which is, I'm just going to pay X number of dollars per month just to own, like to drive something. And with the subscription model in North America, it's kind of weird because you can sort of swap between cars, but I've noticed that like
this
a Gt3 is on there.
Porsche.
Yeah.
So they've already introduced it.
But it's only in one...
See, I think the subscription model, and I really do, I think subscription model with the electrification of the Porsche lineup and with the electrification of cars, I think subscription model is probably better than buying one outright. Or, this thing where, your car, you keep it for 3 years and then you let it go. You don't really ever own an electric car.
But that's like a lease. This is kind of different. This is where you're literally paying X number of dollars a month. Like I've got it in front of me. There's a lower one that's $2,100 a month, and you can choose between a 718, a Boxster, Panamera, a Macan S, and a Cayenne. And then there's the better version is $3,100, and they'll throw in a standard Carrera into that kind of mix. But there's and a Panamera.
So this is Porsche America. So that means
it's only in one or two cities, and they kind of it was obviously like it's a pilot program, and they're going to roll it out because this isn't new to like it. Apparently, you can do this with I think BMWs and Mercedes and stuff like that in other countries as well.
So you get it on a subscription model, and then on top of that, you add extra subscriptions for your Drive and your lane keeping assist, and all of a sudden, you get into a very expensive subscription amount each month.
But you never own the car.
But you never own the car. But does that mean they're liable for everything that goes wrong with the car and liable for everything that needs to be fixed in the car? So. And you get rid of all of your servicing fees, maintenance fees.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Because it's sort of like a car club type thing, like where you kind of go, for X number of dollars, I'll go in and I'll swap my car around. You basically kind of get to kind of swap your Porsches around, but you're plunging like $2 or $3 grand a month, but you never own the thing. It's like really, really different sort of mindset.
I don't know. There's something nice about owning your own Porsche.
Exactly.
There's something nice about owning it. I don't know. I'm not used to. I don't think I can get used to that at the moment. I'm not ready for that.
Same. Look, it'll be exactly the same conversation as whether you own your kind of vinyl or your CDs versus, you know, like back in the old days, you're kind of renting the music sort of thing. Or...
Yeah, true. And some people still like to own their records and own their CDs, and some people don't. So I guess it's going to be the same with cars. You know, it'll start.
Yeah, it's just on a much bigger, grander scale.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. The other thing with the Taycan, did you see it's they've done something to the battery, and this is what I think you would hesitate in buying a Taycan, the very first one. They've optimized the battery. Apparently, they've made the Turbo S even faster. Not that it needed to be faster, apparently, from all the reviews I've watched. So they've shaved 0.2 or 0.3 of a second off its 0 to 124 mile hour time. So what's that? 200 kilometers.
It's crazy.
So it's crazy. It's even got any faster. It doesn't need to be any faster. Let's be honest. So that was all with the Taycan. The other thing is...
new colours?
What do you think?
I mentioned Frozenberry?
Frozenberry, yeah. That colour is for the Chinese market, I think. It has to be.
They launched it in China, apparently.
Yeah, it has to be. It's a Chinese colour. Let's not be... You know, they've got to have the colours for the markets where they're selling a lot of them. And the Panamera and Taycan apparently sell quite well in China. Panamera does. I know the Panamera, like I said before, is very popular in the Middle East. The color I like in the Taycan, though, is that blue. I think I might have mentioned it before, that blue, which frozen blue metallic, I think it's called, or there's a really pale sky blue color. It's not Gulf blue, but it's like an old, it's like the old Messan, how do you say it? Messan blue or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Meissen blue or whatever.
Meissen blue, yeah, it's like that blue. That to me in the Panamera with the wheels, even color the wheels the same color as the body, that would be really cool. So that's it. What else, Steve? Panamera. Do we want to talk about Panamera? I read something about the Panamera.
I'll talk about that. Yeah, it's being launched in a couple of hours, isn't it? The sort of new Panamera, but they did a press release about how it got the Nurburgring Lap Record at 7 minutes 29 for the executive car category.
That's cool.
Which is like massive cynicism again. It's like, wow, you're really struggling to kind of say things about it. Like, everybody knows Porsches are kind of a performance car, and like I read the press release as well, and the car was spec'd on Michelin Cup 2s. Who's going to spec a Panamera on Cup 2s? I was nervous about driving on Cup 2s going down like the south coast and in a GT3 the other day. Like, who on earth is going to spec their Panamera with Cup 2s?
That's what I thought. That was what I wrote down. They were specially developed Michelin. They weren't just normal sport Cup 2s. They were specially developed for the Panamera. Yeah. Right?
It's mental.
And then they're saying they're going to be they're not offered as standard, obviously, for the reasons you said. Why would you offer a family car, executive car with Cup 2s? But they're going to be available as an option.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I'm probably coming across like a massive hater at the moment.
No.
I love Panameras. Like, they're awesome, but I just sort of think, again, like, it's a slightly weird kind of marketing exercise to kind of be launching, you know, like, touting Nurburgring lap times for that type of car.
But it shows you, though, that even Porsche is still, the market is still all about 0 to 100, 0 to 60 lap times. It's still, obviously people still like to hear that, and it's still a selling point because they're still using it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the real world, it's not that important, and sometimes it's way too fast with these electric cars, and even the Panamera. But did you see that the Panamera that they did the lap in, which they beat the Mercedes AMG GT 63S. That was the one that had the lap of Nordschleife, and that was set in 2018. But they beat it by, I think it was 7 minutes 29 something, and the Panamera did 7 minutes. Oh no,
13 seconds.
Yeah, they did 7 minutes 29. Yeah, and they did 7 minutes 30. The Mercedes. But did you see that it was actually the fastest one they used as well? They actually used the the hybrid, the Turbo S hybrid Panamera.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It was buried in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Again, like,
Which is
because I'm
good.
using a marketing lens across it, but it's just it's just very sort of odd. Because normally, I've got to say, like, from an advertising perspective, normally Porsche's actually kind of pretty switched on and quite sophisticated. But the things that we've just been kind of talking about, I sort of feel like from a professional point of view are a little bit kind of clumsy. It's just not, I think people are smarter than that in terms of the way they kind of perceive things.
I guess, like you said, they're launching it today at, I think, 1 p.m. London time. They're launching it. These sort of things get press for the car. And it's good that Porsche is beating Mercedes-Benz. It's a good thing. But, you have to read deeper to see the specs of the car and everything and the way it's been set up. It's like when the Tesla Model S and the Taycan went head-to-head on the ring, right? Both of them were set up. The Tesla was set up completely different. It wasn't really a normal car, correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of...
So.
They talk a lot about the sort of different ways that they're kind of tested. Just on the
strip the weight
acceleration times that you mentioned, these days, like all these sort of supercars and electric cars, EV cars, seem to kind of go 0 to 100 in less than 3 seconds. A really interesting way of putting it, I listened to Andrew Frankel. He's like an old UK journo, really well respected. He was kind of talking about it on his podcast and said, that feeling when you emergency brake, like how it's not a particularly nice feeling to kind of go from 100 to 0 in 2 seconds. Well, he sort of said like he feels the same way about like accelerating, like in reverse. If you go 0 to 100 in 2.3 seconds, he just sort of said it's actually not a very pleasant kind of experience, that sort of sensation and the G-forces and everything. So he was just kind of a bit slightly tongue-in-cheek, I suppose, but it was a good way of sort of saying, like, why is everybody chasing, like, those sorts of times?
Did you... I don't remember the story in full, but I did just see it during the week as well. I think it was... I hope I'm not wrong here. I think it was a Model 3, a Tesla Model 3, and some guy did a post, and basically that emergency braking thing, and apparently it happens in Teslas, where it happened on a motorway, where the car just came to It just came literally to a complete stop.
Wow.
Yeah. Like he said, it was very frightening. I'm pretty sure it was a Model 3. I hope I've got that right, but I was reading about it. And then people said, you should have done this and you should have done that to stop it. But apparently it comes to an emergency stop, and apparently it happens. It happens with the Teslas.
Yeah, I don't know.
A bit scary. But the scary thing with me with electrification and these cars that are doing sub 3 seconds is they're doing sub 3 seconds and they're quiet. You know what I mean? Like you're taking off from 0 and you're getting there in under 3 seconds, and you don't make hardly a sound. And the sound of electric car I always find very, that whooshing sound when they go past you. You can't hear them. You really cannot hear them.
Pedestrian
safety
London would be interesting.
Yeah. In London, when you like a i3 comes past you or whatever, and you just can't. And Teslas, you can't hear the things. Sure, you can hear the sound inside, and you're living in this car, in this Tesla or the Porsche with the sound pumped in, but no one outside can hear your car.
It's the way of the future, mate. You and I are like the two grumpy old men in the Muppets sitting up on the thing.
No, not grumpy. But I'm just saying, like the speed. I don't. It's good that they can. I mean, to get these speeds, there's a lot of engineering that's gone into it. But when it's quiet, to go that fast, like that's scary. I find that really scary.
Yeah, I'd love to have a go. Like all the journos that I'd sort of follow and listen to, etc. Everybody says the Taycan is a pretty amazing kind of car and experience. It's just different to what we're used to with
all right,
internal combustion engines.
Let's get on to the fun part. Let's talk about the new GT3. Let's get back to something that sounds proper, sounds real. So the new GT3, I'll get to the Gt3 Rs because something just came out yesterday, which you saw as well. I'm sure everyone else has seen it because it's been all over the internet. So the GT3, originally, I think they were going to unveil it in Geneva. Was it Geneva?
Yeah, Geneva.
So that was early in the year. They were originally going to announce it in Geneva, but they haven't unveiled it yet.
I think it's early next year now, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think first quarter of next year, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what I read. It's going to be first quarter. So sometime beginning of 2021, they're going to launch it. Obviously, I guess it's going to be done remotely. It'll be like the launch they did for something else, the Turbo, wasn't it? The Turbo they did remotely. So basically, the GT3, as we know, it's going to get more power. I don't know how much more power. Have you read anything about the power, Steve? I haven't actually seen how much more power they're rumoring to add to it.
It's all speculative anyway, so...
But I think what I did read is that actually, I know I did read something. I read that they're going to do a slight bump in the power, but what they're doing is they're working at Porsche's engineers are making sure they're trying to cut weight and improving suspension and improving the aero of the car, the aerodynamic effectiveness of the car, of the new GT3. So I think that's what they're doing. So I guess when you do that, you'll eventually get some more speed anyway, right?
Yeah, well, if you're on a track, it will. Me driving down, me driving through the national park, being chased by a white Golf Mark III, I don't think so. But
yeah, you'll see no change. But anyway, it has to be fast. I don't know what the 991.2 GT3 times were, but I'm guessing as every Porsche that's brought out, it's going to be faster than that, so that's good.
Yeah.
They say that it's still going to be a manual and a PDK, so they're going to offer both transmissions. Yep. The interesting thing that I did read in the article I was reading is that the 991 GT3 Touring, because it was so successful and people seem to love it, they're going to bring that out again in the 992. There is going to be a Touring. And I think there was a photo. I think someone did post a photo, maybe Automotive Mike on YouTube did post an image of what he thought was the Touring going around the ring. I'm pretty sure
I read something. All of this stuff's speculative too, but I think I read something saying that they were considering doing a PDK Touring, which is kind of...
yeah. They said they're going to offer it in both, right? Manual and PDK.
Yeah.
So does that mean the Touring... So then the Touring becomes more like a package, which it was always called a package. Porsche never hid that. They always called it the Touring package for the GT3, right? So it becomes just more like a... You know what I'm trying to say? Is it felt quite raw when it was just the Touring and manual, but if it offered in PDK, is it just going to feel like just another model they're trying to sell you? I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it was like rewind back to like a 996 or a 997. If you go and buy a GT3, there's a Club Sport and a Touring, and the main difference was whether it had the cage and the racing seats or just the standard seats kind of thing. They've obviously kind of evolved that to now removing wings and sort of, different, slightly more differences in characteristics in that.
Yeah, true. True.
I guess more choice for everybody is kind of interesting, and then some people kind of feel like a GT3 really should have a wing. Other people don't. I've never been in the position to buy a brand new car. I have no idea if I have my own opinion of that.
I mean, you're right. The Touring is not a new thing, is it? It's been around since the 996, the first GT3. You could get the Touring option, which, like you said, it didn't have the Club Sport package, and it has the comfort seats. So, So basically, it's not a new thing. So that was it for the GT3. And then what else were we going to talk about? The Gt3 Recipe. I guess we came across something that we read. I forget, and I haven't even got the source of this article.
Motor Trend? You told me it was Motor Trend. Did you
Motor
tell
Trend,
me it was Motor Trend?
Maybe it was Motor Trend, yeah. So they had this thing in there called the Gt3 Recipe. And I just wanted to talk about this because of Steve owning a GT3 and because we did the previous podcast on the GT3. And they have, 5 things, I think, that is from when the GT3 first appeared in 1999. It's followed a sort of development path, correct?
Yep.
So, have they missed anything? I don't know why I'm even talking about this, but have they missed anything in those 5 steps? So they reckon that the Gt3 Recipe is aerodynamics, heaps of aero to basically, what are they doing, Steve? Adding downforce.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just hanging you out to dry.
Yeah, I know you are actually.
I've got the same notes in front of me because they sort of said in the first 996 GT3, obviously had an aero kit, which is the spoiler at the front and the wing at the back, etc. But it actually kind of added zero downforce.
Oh, that's right. The 996 didn't, did it? Yeah.
It probably would have just been neutral in terms, so it probably didn't lift at speed, which like probably cars in those days did. But
Yeah, so with the new GT3 coming out, I guess Porsche follows this recipe. That's what they're saying. And there's 5 steps. And the thing is, the Aero, even though the 1999 one had 0 downforce, the aim of the Aero is to increase downforce. Raise the revs, which we spoke about in our GT3 episode, that the GT3 is high revving. Correct, Steve?
Yep. So the calling card is, like, wow, I suppose, like, no doubt they got so much credit and glory and all of that sort of stuff from having a engine that revs out to $9,000. Surely they can't drop that anymore. Like, it's going to have to kind of stay that way, isn't it? Until they make some major change and it goes like hybrid or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, isn't it? The high revs, and then they have problems with all the legislation, all the emissions, and etc. as well. So it's like a balancing act with it, isn't it? So how's the new GT3 going to sound? The other part of the recipe is increase the grip. So we already know that. Wider tires, bigger wheels, lower.
Wider track.
Yeah, wider track, lower suspension. So the 992 is obviously going to improve on that. Brakes, the brakes get bigger or the brakes get better. One of the two. Normally bigger, correct, Steve?
Or they introduce bigger and better technology like ceramics and whatever. I don't even, what are the white ones these days? That's actually more a coating to kind of reduce brake dust,
it's not ceramic, but they call it something. They use ceramic in the name, don't they? Or carbon in the name.
I think it's a coating over the top of steel or something like that.
Yeah, it's not as expensive as getting the full carbon ceramics. But they're saying that the 992, because the 992 Carrera S has 350 millimeter front discs, they say that the 992 GT3 could wear similar brakes to the carbon rotors that are on the Turbo S. I don't think they'll be exactly the same, but I think that, and the ones on the Turbo S are 420 millimeters. How big are your rotors on your car?
No idea. I can't.
But they're getting huge, aren't they? Like they're getting enormous. So what size wheel do you need? What size width of wheel do you have for that?
They've been enormous for a long time. Like Porsche's been so famous in general for their brakes. Like even remember, go back to, I keep banging on about my 964 and my 993. The brakes on Porsches are brilliant, and that's not purely from the size of the disc. I'm assuming there's a lot more to it than that, like the calipers and the way that it's kind of the bias and all of that type of thing. So like brand new kind of GT3, like a 992 GT3 with kind of crazy big brakes just must be insane.
Yeah. I mean, I find the brakes on my Carrera good, and it's just the base standard brakes. You know what I mean? So I guess when you go up to an S, they're even better, and the GT3 they're better again. But I even find my brakes are fine. I mean, they stop.
Yeah, exactly.
They're perfect. You know what I mean? They're much better than any other car I've driven. Yeah. So
as soon as you jump into a normal car, you start to appreciate more like exactly how good the brakes in a Porsche are.
Well, you know the feel of them. This is the thing that I have with that Audi in Bahrain, which doesn't have good brakes anyway. But I can't judge the feel. I can't judge if I'm going to stop. And sometimes I don't think I'm going to stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's quite scary. The Porsche, I know how I can stop. I know when I'm going to stop. I know how it's consistent. And I think that's what's great. It's consistent, and maybe it's different on a track when you get fading. But in normal road and normal driving circumstances and normal, twisty driving, I know how it's going to perform. And I feel confident with the brakes. I'm not sure. The only thing, and getting on to driving, the thing I'm not sure about is how much grip the back end has. I never know how. I know you've said this before, how you always say, you know that it's got heaps of grip and your car won't lose grip. But I still haven't driven the car enough to realize what its limits are.
You'll never find that out until you go to a track, I reckon. Like, when you're in Sydney one day, I think we need to go and do one of the Auto House sort of private track days kind of thing for grumpy old men from the Muppets like us.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to do a track day.
Because I just don't think you'll never kind of discover that sort of thing on a public road.
You don't think so? Not even if it's wet?
But like, do you really want to kind of try that? Like, don't.
Didn't you do that in your 964 once? You lost it on a roundabout? When you went around a roundabout?
No, that was 993.
Near your parents?
Yeah, that was my 993. Wrong Porsche, mate.
I remember you said the story where you lost the back end on a roundabout or something, right? Or you went into someone's garden.
No. I clipped the curb. I've lost the tail on
taunting
on
the
an
neighbors in your
MX-5.
the neighbors in your parents' suburb saying, "Who is this hooligan?"
Yeah, this is a young whippersnapper.
I don't know about this fifth point they had for the recipe. They call it look sharp. I don't know what that means. I don't even know why we brought up this. This recipe seems a bit...
Appearance.
Oh, the appearance, yeah. So the appearance will change. The appearance will get better, I guess.
It's just whether or not, like, it's pretty obvious that Andy Preuninger knows what he's doing and knows how to kind of build and hone a car and stuff like that. So I think they're in pretty safe hands. Whenever... they're very clever in terms of using him as a figurehead and stuff like that. But I think whenever you kind of see him speaking in all of his kind of journalist duties and stuff like that, and even on Instagram, I follow him on Instagram, and I think the stuff that he says is actually kind of, he seems like, pretty kind of grounded guy.
Yeah, I follow him.
Seems like a big reason.
He was out enjoying his boat on the last post, I noticed. Just living the life.
But you kind of get a sense that he's not going to, like, he's probably defending people that are wanting to kind of make it a turbo or make it too heavy or, do certain things to it.
Yeah, he's trying to keep the GT. He's trying to keep the GT2, the essence of the GT3 there. He's keeping it. You know what I mean? But I think that's why the Spider, the new Spider, the Cayman Spider or Boxster Spider, whatever you call it. That's why it's so good this generation, right? Because he now has a hand in that development of that Spider.
And the previous one wasn't in the motorsport division.
Yeah, so because he does, it's actually got a lot better. And he actually said in a podcast, I think with Spike or somebody, that he actually had that car for the weekend. I think Spike or whoever I think it was Spike, he was a bit surprised that he had a Spider, and he was saying how great it was. He said this is a perfect car. And he was selling it. Did you hear that episode? That he had it, and he said it was a great car. And I think the Spider is quite a good car, by the way. I actually do. Yeah. I do like it. I think it's a bit expensive, but I do like it.
Love one.
Yeah.
I mean, slight tangent.
Get one,
but,
man. Buy it.
Yeah.
Sell the Macan and buy a Spider. Can you put a baby seat in the Spider?
I don't think so. Slight tangent too is like, with all the kerfuffle about the new Gordon Murray T50.
Yes. I didn't know there was kerfuffle.
Really...
I watched the numerous videos. Yeah.
Like, it's really interesting because he's obviously the kind of grandfather of the McLaren F1, etc. But I'd be really interested to see if, because he's gone off and kind of not been beholden to kind of big corporations, blah, blah, blah. He's sort of stuck to this principle of it's not about 0 to 100 times. It's more about, like the kind of experience and put into the mix practicality, and that's driven by weight, making sure that it's lightweight and all that sort of thing. Like, I wonder if he pulls it off and this car is as good as, like, it potentially kind of could be. I wonder if that would sort of encourage, like, some of the big kind of corporate car makers, like, the M division of BMW and blah, 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 to sort of stop chasing kind of, like, all the kind of crazy power figures and sort of go back to understanding that the thing that people seem to be appreciating more now is less about that sort of statistical type thing and more about, the experience and the feel. Yeah. Really interesting to see if he...
I think everyone knows who Gordon Murray is, right? He developed the F1, McLaren F1. And what was the other one he did? The SLR, Mercedes-Benz SLR, right?
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. I don't think it's a good point you just made, and I think it was interesting, those videos, watching him just as a car designer, someone who's so established as a car designer, and asking him what he didn't like about the F1. You know what I mean? And he was saying because it was done in clay and it was too late to change it. And I think one of the things was the distance between the back where you see something in the panels, like these little minute things. And he said it still bothers me today to look at it. I still don't like looking at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a weird, different way of thinking. And there was other things too. I can't remember all of them. But he said he owned, they brought in one of the episodes in the Top Gear episode on YouTube. If everyone hasn't seen it, they should watch it. They bring in his original car. They bring in the car that he had actually sold, the original F1. And then they talk about the new car that he's developed on his own. He said that he used to drive it. Did you watch that one, the Top Gear one? He said he used to drive it all the time. And then it went up to $1 million. And then the price just kept going up. And he said he just had to sell it. It was just too
expensive.
Much. It was too expensive and too expensive to insure. And so he eventually sold the car.
The responsibility of it.
Yeah, the responsibility, because now they're worth what? even when Jay Leno
20.
went out, 22 million?
It was more than 20 million, and I'm no idea, but I'm guessing that he's probably not doing too badly in terms of he's a wealthy guy, but he's gotten to the point where the car that he actually kind of created is worth so much that he can't actually kind of drive it as he intended, which was, sort of like a everyday kind of supercar.
But it's good. It's good. It's got that status, I guess, and it lets him do what he's doing now. I think the car that he introduces, the one he's introducing, is not bad looking. It looks quite good. It's quite small, though, they say. It's very small.
Yeah, I think he said that it's the size of a Boxster, I think.
Really?
I think it's got the basic dimensions of I think it was a Boxster, yeah.
A Boxster for 2.6 million euro or whatever it's going to cost.
Yeah. I mean, there's bits of it that I don't think looks that great, but looks are obviously very kind of subjective.
People will buy it because they'll think that it's going to appreciate, like the F1. Anyway, we're getting off track, not Porsche, but all car related. But yeah, it will sell. But it's not launched until 2022, I think.
Yeah. Look,
something like that.
The reason why I just raised that was just the sort of recipe for a GT3, like those sorts of things, which are aero, kind of high revving engine, grip, great braking and looks. Just interesting to see if performance cars kind of sort of go on a slightly less statistic kind of chasing.
Experience, not speed.
Yeah.
Handling experience, not speed.
Andy Pointinger sort of mentions that quite a few times, but like he works for a big corporation and like they have no choice but to kind of go, the next car is faster, more powerful,
Because everyone's doing it. And then with Ferraris are getting faster and faster, and as they say, they're getting heavier and heavier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they've got to get engines got to go bigger because they're getting so much. They're putting on all the weight to keep this to be able to do this sound, to be able to do this speed. They're putting on weight. So it's got to stop somewhere. And yesterday's images on Nurburgring of apparently the first prototype of the 993 Gt3 Rs. Now, I read something before, which I was telling you about, is that people are saying it is. I know I saw so many posts when I woke up this morning on Instagram about it, people saying it is, and then there was a sound clip. Someone had got a sound clip of it, and it was quite a deep sound. I mean, it sounded okay. But some people are saying that it's not 100% that this is going to be the Gt3 Rs. And they say it because basically they're suggesting that it could be the Cup car. And the reason why they think it could be the Cup car is by the size of the wing.
Which is enormous. It's that swan neck sort of design where the spoiler blade is sort of suspended rather than kind of propped up from underneath, right?
And they're saying that the swan neck is not that Porsche may not be introducing that swan neck for the wings on both the GT3, because I think the GT3 prototype had it as well, right? For the GT3 and the Gt3 RS. But is this one actually a Cup car because the wing is so huge? So I think the design of the wing is going to be the swan neck, but I think maybe, I don't know, this to me looks like a car that it's not like the Gt3 RS and 991. That wing was big enough, right? This wing is, if that's the size of the wing, that's enormous for a car that you're just going to drive around Sydney or London in. Let's be honest. It's a bit crazy, right? So maybe it isn't the normal Gt3 RS. Maybe it is the Cup car or something else.
They seem to obviously kind of to reference all the kind of motorsport cars, because the vented wheel arches came from motorsport. Like all of these sort of bits kind of keep sort of following through. I guess you could kind of have a look at the current Cup car. I don't know if it's got that
actually good
type
point.
of spoiler, and see if it's kind of moving through the lineage kind of thing.
Did you like it had the detail on the bonnet, on the hood was quite good too. You see how it's got the squibs on the hood, the slightly different detailing compared to the previous Gt3 RS, if it is a Gt3 RS. And also the article I read, it said that if you look at the fender, and I said this to you before, is that they reckon you can see a charging point near the fuel cap in the same position where the Taycan one is. I don't know whether it is, but I mean, surely it can't be a hybrid 911 Gt3 RS yet. I mean, hybrids are still a bit away, the hybrid 911. Maybe second generation 992 or the next generation.
They'd be developing that sort of thing for sure, because they admitted that when they released the 992 that there was space, somewhere up the front for the car to kind of receive an electric motor to drive the front wheels, didn't they? So maybe surely they're kind of looking at it.
But maybe if they're saying that's a charging point. Maybe it is a race car. Maybe that is a race car version. Maybe it's not a normal street version.
Yeah.
Maybe it's got some kind of battery system in it. Who knows? Anyway, time will tell. But that was all over the internet yesterday. That's why we're bringing it up. And that's about it. I think. Oh, the other thing, the sales of Porsche. I don't know if you saw this article, Steve.
No, I didn't.
I thought it was quite interesting because everyone's saying that car sales during this period, during the pandemic, during COVID-19, are going crazy. Everything I seem to watch, like even with Bring a Trailer and all those places, and even car dealers who are on YouTube, and that everyone seems to be saying they've got no stock and cars are selling. I mean, I don't know whether this is new cars, but maybe it is new cars. I thought it was just classic cars or used cars. But Porsche apparently, their sales for the 6 months of the year dropped 12.4% during the pandemic. I think I said they raised before. They actually dropped. They dropped 12.4%. And their most popular model is, take a guess.
Can?
Yeah. No, Cayenne.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cayenne's the most popular, which accounted for 39,000 odd units. Then the Macan at 34,000. So pretty close. Macan and Cayenne are the two best where the money's coming from for Porsche.
Well, Macan is sort of like the older of the two as well.
Yeah. And then
Cayenne would have been the newer, more interesting thing.
And then the Macan will come up as an electric car in 2022 as well. It's all going electric, which we could talk about in the next step in another episode. But it said the 911 range actually had achieved growth. And that's obviously, like you said, because of the new 992 model, 2.2% growth. But, the numbers always surprise me when I see these. 16,919 units of 911. That's it. So, compared to 40,000, say, of the Cayenne. So it's a big difference.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, and 5,000 Taycans were sold during the time as well. 4,480. 4,500 Taycans.
There'd be so many. There'd still be queues for that thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and then you got the waiting list as well. So I thought the numbers for the Taycan were quite a lot, considering the price of it. I mean, it's not cheap. I've only seen one in London. I told you that. I saw that one black one. That's it. I haven't seen a turbo. That wasn't a turbo, I don't think. I think it was a 4S.
There'd just be an ilk of customer that has a lot of money and just wants to be in the latest, greatest thing, like with anything like watches, whatever it is. And they've kind of got the cash to burn. They previously had a Tesla and, now there's something kind of cooler.
I think from what we said earlier, though, I think you'd wait till the 21 model came out. It seems like they've improved it already. You know what I mean? You wouldn't buy one now. You'd wait till the new model, Steve.
I think if you've got enough money, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, true. All right. What else?
Hey,
I think that's it. Yeah.
There was one other thing. You mentioned in a previous podcast on your YouTube channel, that a mate of yours or a follower, Nick in Melbourne, was it?
Yeah, Nick that used to own a GT3.
Yeah, so he made mention. I sort of just, because you mentioned it in the podcast, I just went back and had a look at the comment, and he made a really interesting kind of comment in the comments about he used to own a GT3, a 997.1 GT3, is it?
Yeah. So this is going back to our GT3 episode that we did, which we also put on YouTube. This is just a comment about, we're talking about tyre life and maintenance costs, I think, weren't we, Steve?
Yeah. So I kind of cut and pasted it in front of me just because I didn't want to misquote it. But he basically was just sort of saying that in and amongst sort of daily driving, so I think he daily drove it, plus he kind of did a bit of track work. And he was saying that he went through 2 sets of tyres in a year, which cost about 8K, and then he only managed to kind of get 5,000 Ks out of general driving, and then added it all up with servicing and insurance, etc. He sort of estimated it was between 15 and 16 Aussie a year just to basically run his GT3.
Yeah, but I think you're right. That's using it, and maybe Nicholas can clarify this, but I think that's using it as a track car. And maybe driving it every day and using it as a track car, I think.
I just read it and found it really interesting. So I'm not sort of saying, hey, bullshit or anything, not at all. But it's just really interesting that he kind of said that, because that, just by comparison to my experience of it, is extraordinarily high, like in terms of the tyre wear and the kind of costs involved. Just interesting because, like, I thought I sort of ran my GT3. I don't run it as a daily, but I thought like it's sort of relatively well used. And I know I don't track it, which is an expensive exercise, but I wouldn't get near like that kind of tyre wear or that type of maintenance money on my car. So it's just really interesting that somebody has like that type of experience.
I can't remember, and maybe if Nicholas is listening to this podcast, he can actually give us a message, but I can't remember how many miles a year was he doing? Did he say?
I don't think he
said.
I don't think it said.
But it just showed...
He said, for example, that he said like about 5,000k out of a set of tyres, which obviously with track time, I guess sort of changes it a lot. But man, I'd be crying if I only got 5,000 kilometres out of a set of tyres.
5,000 kilometres. How much do you get out of your Rs now?
I reckon I'd still get probably, as a guess, I reckon I'd be getting maybe about 12 to 15,000.
Wow, so that's a big difference.
3 times what he, yeah.
See, this is the thing in the varying costs of owning a Porsche. You know what I mean? Like you've got one person saying they spend this much and you're saying you spend that much. So I guess it is how hard you drive it. I guess it is where you drive it. But
and look, I don't drive that hard, so I know that I'm not, sort of like that. But I was very curious and very surprised when he just sort of mentioned that was his basic kind of running costs, etc. Because it's just different to my experience.
Yeah, so it was a big range from what you said you paid per year to what Nicholas said he pays per year. It's a big range.
I don't think I'd sort of figured out a number, and I didn't sort of say it on the podcast, but it certainly wouldn't be 15 to 16,000 a year.
Yeah. I guess everyone's ownership costs are different, huh? Yeah, I guess track days do eat up the rubber, though. I guess if you're doing track days and you're doing them regularly,
brakes and all that sort of stuff.
And the brakes, they eat up, the brakes, the cost of that maintenance and everything. So I guess it would add up pretty quickly. I
reckon my maintenance costs would be, my maintenance and running costs would be, surely they'd be kind of pretty much on par with yours, wouldn't they?
I think they're pretty similar. I think your services, I think they charge you slightly more for your service because I think they charge more for GT3s, don't they? Or do they do that pricing? I don't know. But,
some of the consumables would be more expensive, like, all of that type of thing. Yeah, definitely would be. I don't think there's sort of like a GT3 tax kind of thing.
But do Autohouse follow because Porsche, if you look at Porsche service prices, when I can find them on their website for whatever dealer, the GT3 costs for servicing minor, major, and annual are slightly higher than the base 997 Carrera.
Right.
They're slightly higher. I don't know whether Autohouse follows that. No, this is just the base. Or? Maybe it is consumables, but it's slightly higher, yeah. But not a lot. Maybe. Not what you would think. Not what you think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So just going back to the point, which was just in sort of like if anybody was curious about the running costs, I would have thought like the running costs for my car isn't like crazy amount higher than your Carrera.
I don't even know what my running costs are. I should.
Yeah, I haven't figured them out as well, but
maybe I should.
I just wouldn't have thought that they would run like 15 to 16k a year. So just very interesting. Again, like not at all sort of calling bullshit or suggesting anything otherwise, but it's just interesting.
But then again, I think last year I would have spent, well, I can tell you now, I think Autohouse cost me almost $3,000 when I was at Autohouse in February.
For a service,
major service, and then I had the oil pressure sensor. I think it could have been $3,000 to $3,500. I have it off the top of my head. And then with registration, insurance, so that's $5,000, and then it's probably like at least $6,500 Australian. That's just for those three things.
Yeah. That so like that would be kind of sort of fair.
And then if you add in the steering rack, which I need to be done, that's supposed to be close to $1,500. So that's $8,000. So that would have had to be done in the year. So that's $8,000.
Yep.
So last year was probably $8,000 in costs, $8,000 Australian. Yep. So, that's probably scaring some people when they're listening, going, well, how can you pay so much money? But it was about 8,000 Australian. So 8,000 Australian is about 6,000 US, roundabout.
Yeah, but you're still also talking about a 12-year-old car. You're not talking about a brand new one.
Which, I said before, the cost of the Porsche is less, and and I was going to an independent, is less than what it was costing me for the Audi in the end. It's a bit like you changing from the 993 to the GT3. My Audi being 12 years old or whatever it was, and then the cost that it was costing me in the end, it just got to a point it was just too expensive.
Absolutely.
So Porsche isn't that expensive. It is reasonable. You got to pick the right one, and you got to find a good example. But when you do, I think you'll find that it's not that scary, and it's something that You will never regret once you do it.
Yeah.
All right, Steve. I think we've gone way over time today.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I think it's good. We've got lots to talk about. We haven't finished everything, I don't think, but I think we'll stop it there. These podcasts always are about an hour. I think we've gone for an hour and a half almost. I think we've gone for a long today. So I hope everyone's still there. I hope everyone's still listening. All right, Steve. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, no worries. Take care. Have a good week.
You too.
I'll talk to you pretty soon, no doubt.
So this episode will go up on Friday. As everyone knows, I've said it before, and it's available everywhere. Okay, thanks for listening. I am Porsche. My name is Michael Barth. That's Steve coming all the way from Sydney. This is the PorscheCooled Podcast. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.